With various Persona games coming on October the 21st to a host of new platforms, we at RPGamer thought we would take a look at this 26-year spanning franchise and contemplate whether or not to play Persona 5 Royal, the first game being brought to their new homes, or wait for one of the older titles to return instead. This is where to start. Persona. A video analysis written by RPGamer staff and narrated by Woodhouse. Revelations Persona. Where it all began. Revelations Persona is an early PlayStation RPG released in 1996 that brought many of the staples of the Persona franchise worldwide for the first time. There were a lot of issues with the localization of the PS1 version, which was significantly improved upon in its 2009 PSP Shin Megami Tensei Persona release. This was one of the first games to allow intricate negotiation with enemies for additional perks, equipment and spells. The game was one of the earlier titles to make use of the modern-day high school saving the world trope that is seen in plenty of games to this day. The characters and story hold up, and while rudimentary by today's Persona standards, are still worth getting to know. The combat is somewhat complicated, while its unique experience system, which rewards characters on their combat experience, has its own problems. It's punishingly balanced by today's standards, and is more likely to be appreciated by fans of challenging nostalgic RPGs. There are insanely difficult dungeons and areas that are near impossible to traverse without a guide. Revelations Persona is not a perfect game, and isn't easy to recommend as a place to start for all of the issues listed here. It works as a place to learn some of the tenets of the franchise, but many of the other games feature an actual tutorial to help that process along. This is not the game to start with, but is possibly a game to return to see what it was like dealing with the frustrations and learn about an underrated cast. Persona 2 – Innocent Sin. After the experiments of Shin Megami Tensei If and Persona, Atlus decided to bet a little bigger on the fledgling franchise and started on an ambitious duology, Persona 2 Innocent Sin and Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. Innocent Sin didn't release in English until 2011's PSP version, a game that resembles its original release in most particulars, but makes some allowances for a slicker UI and mechanical updates that bring it more in line with the duology's second half. Persona 2 Innocent Sin is fundamentally an attempt to make the mechanics of the first game more palatable, while going further with the strong, recognizable non-apocalyptic modern world trappings. The game's mostly silent protagonist is 18-year-old high school senior Tatsuya Suo, who along with his friends get roped into playing part in a rumor called the Joker game. The rumor goes that if you dial your own cell phone number and tell it your heart's desire, the Joker will appear and grant your wish. Upon playing the game, the band of high schoolers is shocked to find that Joker actually does appear, and he makes it clear he's going to kill them as vengeance for a grievous wrong they committed. Instead of killing them, he disappears, but not before stealing the souls and ambitions of the gang of Tatsuya's friend, Aikichi. The game is driven by its strong, frequently intentionally bizarre plotting and extremely charming cast of characters, and its plot is also cleverly interwoven into the game's mechanics. As rumours are spread, the world changes to reflect them, and both the plot and gameplay make ample use of this fact. The rest of the gameplay is not terribly dissimilar to the first game. The rougher experimental systems have been sanded off, and the game genuinely is just a fair bit easier than its predecessor. Navigation is less frustrating, and the overworld map is infinitely more navigable than Revelations Persona's untextured grey morass. Though dungeons contain similarly difficult and unpredictable elements such as pitfalls, they're generally navigable even for those with a poor sense of direction. Persona 2 Innocent Sin is a decent starting point for the series. It tells a story that isn't strictly self-contained, as it is part 1 of a clear 2-part narrative. But it is perfectly understood and enjoyed without knowledge of the events of its predecessor. Persona 2 Innocent Sin can be fairly argued as the first game in the series that was at least as mechanically simple to parse as its contemporaries, and while it isn't perfectly put together, it's much easier to get through the passable mechanics to the excellent writing, characterization, and plotting. Whether or not Persona 2 Innocent Sin ends up as one's first experience with the franchise, it is worth tracking down at some point on any fan's journey through the franchise as part 1 of what is perhaps the most intriguing overall plot in the series. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment is the direct sequel to Innocent Sin, offering a new perspective through the character of Maya Amano, who is a reporter investigating the Joker curse, an occurrence where disturbing rumours come to life. Maya goes to investigate a rumour at Seven Sisters High School, where she, her friend Ulala, and Detective Katsuya find the school principal dead, and a man named Joker claiming responsibility. The group meets Joker, only to be knocked out. It's then that they meet Philemon, a wise spirit who informs the cast there is more danger to come if Joker isn't stopped. Philemon also grants our heroes their personas as a means to defend themselves from Joker and stop the impending doom looming over Sumeru City. One of the unique aspects of Eternal Punishment is the game's perspective shifting to Maya from Tatsuya from Innocent Sin. Characters who interacted with Tatsuya in the first game act differently towards Maya, which is a big part of the story. Given Eternal Punishment is the other side of the overall duology's tale, it means playing the first part is integral to understanding the trajectory of narrative events. Eternal Punishment features turn-based combat, where both the player and persona level up, but is fairly slow moving. The game also has a punishing encounter rate that would be unforgivable by today's standards. Persona 2 Eternal Punishment has a fantastic story that will keep players glued to the game, but given how slow the battle system is and how insanely high the encounter rate, it's easy for players to be deterred. It also suffers from odd release circumstances. While the game was released in North America in 2000, Innocent Sin was not available in English until its release on the PSP, only initially giving players half the story. Like the other titles from this phase of the series, it is mostly recommended for those with a ton of patience who wish to see how the series has grown. It's also a shame that the PSP version of Eternal Punishment was only released in Japan, as it includes plenty of quality of life improvements, including fast forwarding through battles, better load times, and a new special scenario enhancing its connections to Innocent Sin. Persona 3. Persona 3 marked the series' transition from PlayStation to PlayStation 2, bringing with it a host of new changes that nowadays identify the series. In Persona 3, players control a silent protagonist as he arrives in the Japanese city of Iwatodai. Upon leaving the train station, the clock strikes midnight, marking the start of the Dark Hour, during which most citizens are turned into coffins and Gekuken High School is replaced with an elaborate tower called Tartarus. Players are tasked with controlling a team of students who comprise the specialized extracurricular Execution Squad, to explore Tartarus and discover the nature of the Dark Tower and the goal of the shadows that stalk humans during it. Persona 3 is drastically different from prior games in the series, both in terms of design and aesthetics. This is the first game in the series to include simulation elements, bifurcating the game into a school day simulator by day and a somber dungeon crawler at night. During the day, players increase their social links with friends and classmates, which provides stat bonuses when fusing new personas for battle. As each month counts down towards the full moon, the members of SEAS can expect to face a new major story encounter and need to prepare themselves by advancing through the floors of Tartarus. The game also features significant combat changes, marking the first instance of its take on the press-turn battle system first used in Shin Megami Tensei 3, as well as the use of AI to control the other party members. The graphics are given a complete overhaul and feature a sharp and eye-catching anime aesthetic, while its frankly stunning use of handgun-like devices as catalyst to summon personas is still powerful so many years later. Featuring a sleek user interface and incredibly vibrant soundtrack from Shoji Meguro, Persona 3 set the new standards for the series. Meanwhile, Persona 3 Portable went a long way to establish the PSP for RP gamers, offering a new streamlined experience, as well as a new version of the game with a female main protagonist that accommodates them with plenty of narrative adjustments. It's a perfectly good place to start, especially for those who want to see how the series' second phase has developed from the base that it established. Persona 3 FES. Known as Episode Aegis in Japan, FES is a unique epilogue added to Persona 3 as part of its enhanced Persona 3 FES release. Players take on the role of Persona 3 party member Aegis as the C's members embark on a new dungeon called the Abyss of Time, after discussing they are stuck in a time loop. As players work through the Abyss of Time, hoping to find a way to end the loop and encountering the android Metis, they are given bits of the story relating to each character's background and how they obtained their persona. The team works through the dungeon, hoping to find a way to end the loop. FES is combat focused, and the difficulty is somewhat unforgiving. While FES easily adds over 20 hours of content, a lot of it is spent in the dungeon, and there is much less expansion of Persona 3 story than many were hoping for. Furthermore, a lot of the best elements of Persona 3, such as the social links, are removed here, as it's mainly a full dungeon crawl. It's hard to recommend whether or not FES is worth going out of one's way to play, and players' mileage will vary. If you love brutally hard boss fights and the dungeon crawling elements of Persona 3, there's enjoyment to be had here. However, beyond that, there's very little that makes FES compelling and worth the extra effort. Persona 4 and Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 continued on the steps that Persona 3 took in further differentiating Persona from its Shin Megami Tensei beginnings. While working with the gameplay changes introduced in its predecessor, it distinguished itself with new themes and a fresh and more modern popish attitude, as well as a notable new setting in the rural town of Inaba. The game itself concerns a series of murders and disappearances associated with a bizarre midnight channel that appears on TV during rainy nights, with players taking on the role of a transfer student who teams up with others after they discover the ability to enter the shadow world connected to events. The game features a more polished version of the day-to-day cycle, giving players more freedom, while its summoner dungeons comes with distinct designs to help make them stand out. Meanwhile, its new attitude is successfully conveyed by its brighter colours, TV-themed UI, and an incredibly catchy pop-themed soundtrack from Shoji Meguro. A few story elements and themes come off a bit dated in the current year, but Inaba's small-town feel, the fantastic cast, incredibly personable dialogue, excellent audio and strong gameplay combine to make the game feel a superb all-around experience. Enhanced Remaster Persona 4 Golden was one of the highest-profile early PlayStation Vita releases, quickly helping cement the many merits of the device in the eyes of many RP gamers. The release provided a very welcome opportunity for new players to leap into the series, also adding new story beats surrounding new character Marie, with other added beats helping to solidify its ending. With Persona 4 Golden now available on PC via Steam and coming soon to other consoles, the game is definitely one that newcomers can readily leap into. Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 is the most recent mainline title to date, getting an enhanced version in Persona 5 Royal just a few years after that added 2 new characters, a new dungeon, an extension to the story, and other mechanics. The game sees players take on the role of a high schooler, later given the moniker Joker, who arrives in a new city running afoul of the authorities. He discovers that he has the ability to access the metaverse, an alternate world where the desires of people materialize. Shortly after, he becomes the leader of the Phantom Thieves, a group of teenagers who use the metaverse to change the hearts of misguided people. The story is marvellous, and surprisingly grows from isolated personal conflicts to a city-wide emergency, featuring plot twists and deeply fleshed out characters. The cast is captivating and charming, with memorable enemies and lovable party members including the feline Morgana. Like its immediate predecessors, in Persona 5 players live a double life. On the one hand, they need to attend school and interact with people in the city, bonding with some of them and having plenty of immersive interactions. On the other, they need to go inside the metaverse to save people, explore dungeons, and fight demons. The dungeons are varied, and exploring both the real world and the metaverse is very entertaining, with players having an even wider variety of activities through which to improve their characters and bonds. The turn-based battle system, again focusing on exploiting weaknesses, is the most stylish version to date, and the variety of demons is noteworthy. Meanwhile, the Confidant system offers a more narratively ingrained version of social links, aiding Joker in his phantom thievery. The game goes all out on style. Its striking visuals are magnificently worked into all aspects of the UI. The cinematic direction is spectacular, and the jazz-fueled soundtrack and voice acting are fabulous. Persona 5 is a fantastic starting point for newcomers, and like the other mainline titles in this second phase, no knowledge of previous games is required. It does a fantastic job in bringing the series to a new generation of consoles and RP gamers. The game is extraordinary and includes fully polished versions of all the franchise's staples, especially its Royal Edition. In conclusion, RPGamer recommends that Persona 5 Royal, the first of the series coming to Steam, Switch and Xbox in October 21st, is an excellent place to start your Persona journey, with plenty of time to play your way through before Persona 3 and 4 are released in 2023. These three games offer the best sets of characters, mechanics and plots, while still being fair to the player. Revelations and Persona 2 Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment are best left to those who have a familiarity with the franchise already, due to their unforgiving nature. The Persona series has gone from strength to strength, but each title offers something distinct, and we hope that you've enjoyed our brief run-through of what the series has to offer. Would you recommend a specific starting point? Join the conversation by dropping a comment below. And for all your reviews and news, and for everything RPG related, stay tuned to RPGamer, and we'll see you next time.